Welcome to Bear and Balanced. I'm Jeff Berckes. I'm a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the boss over at Windy City Gridiron, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, how you feeling today after the Bears drop a blowout loss in LA?
Jeff, it's kind of interesting because I was always waiting when I hear your voice. I'm always waiting for your intro that you do on Bears Over Beers. So I was curious how you were going to play this intro, and it's, I think at some point it's going to get a little more theatrical, right?
We gotta get some theme music going. This is a new podcast. This is episode 1, so not quite sure where our producer Robert Schmitz is going to be taking the show. But once we get some music and once we know exactly how we're going to be leading in, I'll make it a little more theatrical. But yes, and it is fun to record that theatrical intro without the music because you just have to have it playing in your head. But we are starting a new podcast this year. We wanted to have a podcast where we reacted with a little bit of distance from the game. There's the Bear With Me show that has an instant reaction. A lot of times you can have your emotions high and you can have some incomplete information and maybe say some things that you can regret in the morning. You get a little bit too excited. This is a little bit of distance. Hopefully the emotion is mostly cooled down. We were going to have a tagline as a few degrees cooler in honor of Lester's favorite malt beverage, but we have not added that tagline in yet. But that's what this show is going to be about. We're going to be coming to you each and every Tuesday morning in your podcast feed for a reaction pod throughout the year. So after every game. So very excited to be pairing with you on this, Lester.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's going to be a thing where we kind of take a chance to sleep on the game, think about it a little bit, maybe go back and watch it. I mean, of course, the All-22 is not available quite yet, but if they go back and watch the game and, have a chance to hear the press conferences, like you said, sometimes some stuff's taken out of context, on the immediate post-game show. It's a little hot takey sometimes because that's the nature of that kind of show. Us, let's just wait a minute, check it out, have the press conference come, and then we'll give our take on the game after that. So with that being said, Jeff, I mean, the Bears got smoked, but was it as bad as you thought it was watching live?
I think it was exactly what I expected the game to be going into it. So I guess I saw a lot of what was going to happen. I was really worried about the secondary. That got exposed. I was worried about the offensive line. That got exposed. But, there were some positive things. There were some maybe surprises on both sides. There were some guys that I just didn't think showed up. And there were some guys that I thought, okay, yeah, let's see what happens there. And we got to see Justin Fields. I actually did not think that was going to happen. And so that was a little bit of a pleasant surprise from my expectations. He had 5 plays in this game. And so there's always interesting things that happen. And I think overall it was about what I expected. Better or worse, I can't really say, but there were some things that were pleasant surprises and some things that we're going to need to talk about.
Yeah, I had a feeling the game was good. Obviously, I picked the Rams, but I had a feeling the game would be a little closer. And it was funny because in the keys of the game that I picked for at the site, I had it, the Bears had to run the ball. They had to chew up the clock, a bunch of short passes. And then the other part of that was, the defense had to come through. And obviously the defense did not come through. If that would have happened, the game would have been much closer. But as it was, I mean, the Bears offense, it's so funny because it's like they scored 14 points. And as Bears fans, we're looking back at it, we're like, it wasn't bad. I mean, the bar for quarterback play in this town, unfortunately, is very, very low. So Andy Dalton, he had the terrible pick in the end zone. It was tipped pass. These things happen. But like I said, the bar is low. So you look at his overall numbers, you're like, well, the offense was moving. I think they had like 24 first downs, which is something I was shocked to see. So, there were some positives there. The O-line was opening up a few holes for Montgomery. The run game was working. But where was the play action?
Right.
Not enough.
Yeah, we've been begging for play action, since Nagy took the reins. And we talked about this a lot where, Nagy seems like a guy that likes to design play calls, pass plays specifically. But he has delegated the run game to other people in the past. You wonder exactly what his relationship is with the run game. Does he understand how to mesh the run game in with his pass game and that intersection, which is play action? He doesn't use the play action concept nearly as much as what a lot of the in vogue play callers are doing. He's not anywhere close to the McVays or the Shanahans or anything like that. And we're just not seeing enough of that. But I'm not sure that there's a very good continuity between the run game and the pass game. Those concepts don't seem to work together. And I think that we're still seeing a lack of that in Nagy's game plan and in the execution on the field.
I was also surprised that we didn't see more of the bootleg, the boot slide offense that we saw last year with Trubisky. I thought that was going to be the Bears' plan going in. Of course, then when they had to go to Nick Foles, that they had to scrap that whole thing. But I think that's something that the Bears can do because that warrants itself to running play action because that's it's all based on that. I mean, it happens with the Rams, we see it with the Packers. Teams that are successful that have a quarterback that can do more than just those simple boots and those half field reads, which the Bears now have in Andy Dalton. He can go through all of his progressions if he has time. So especially against the Rams and Aaron Donald, why were most of his passes dropbacks? It just seemed like it was I understood the game plan. They want to get the ball out quick, but on the same token, it's like, okay, well, you can roll out every now and again. Let's move the pocket. Let's not be in the same spot all the time. So guys like Donald and Floyd can really tee off on you. Let's get him moving around. It's not like Andy Dalton's a statue. I mean, he's a decent athlete. I don't know. I just think this is a big year for Matt Nagy. It's a real big put up or shut up here for him. He has to show that he is capable of calling an NFL offense. And I mean, the jury's out still, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one of those things that they may have been expecting was for Cody Whitehair, who I would say is their best player along that offensive line, to show up last night and not look like a zombified Cody Whitehair. That was, I think, the worst game I've ever seen Cody Whitehair play. He just got absolutely whipped all game that I could see. There's more
Aaron
that
Donald.
You can go back and look, and it's Aaron Donald. He's the best defensive player in the league, if not the best player overall in the league. But it was a bad game from Cody Whitehair. So, well, that's why don't we get into, so what we're going to do is we have a few segments. So just full disclosure, we have not shared our answers for any of these segments. So we are going in blind. So we will react to each other's picks for these segments. But because Lester and I both have a little bit of a playing background, we both played along the offensive line, defensive line. We appreciate those guys up front. And so we are going to lead off every show with a segment called Trench Tribute, and we are going to talk about one Bears player from either the offensive line or the defensive line that we think deserves a little bit of the spotlight. We're going to take that up top. So, Lester, who do you have as your Trench Tribute for the first episode?
It was rough. The fresh watch when I watched the first time was like, I wasn't really sure who to go with. I had a couple ideas. Then I watched the game again today, and my initial idea was scrapped. And I'm going to go with a guy who had a really, really rough preseason game, and that's Germain Ifedi. I'm not saying he had a clean game this week because there were some issues there in pass pro, a couple issues with Aaron Donald that he just totally whiffed on some blocks. But overall, where he came from in preseason, where Bears fans thought this guy had just completely, just dropped off a cliff. I mean, he looked horrible in that last preseason game. He looked serviceable this week. So for a serviceable Bear this week, for my guy is going to be Ifedi. Decent, but at this point, with all the other problems the Bears have, I guess I'll take decent this week.
I'd have to go back and look again. I don't really want to go back into that hellscape again, but he might have been the best offensive lineman this week. So that's a good pick. I'm going basic, and I'm going to take the guy that got the sack this week. I'm going to take Akeem Hicks. He looked fired up. They had that close up of him where he had the crazy face and he was kind of sticking his tongue out, and he's fired up. And I just like Akeem Hicks, the human being. And I like that he wears navy and orange. And I like that he looks like an actual Bear. And he wears 96. And that's a big number. And just like everything about him just kind of speaks like defensive lineman. And I love that he got the sack. I think the official score went half Quinn, half, which that's what it looked like to me live. And then I looked at the stats like pretty soon after that, and it looked like they had fully credited Hicks with the sack. They went back and corrected that to Quinn. So Quinn has a half a sack and Hicks has half a sack. But I'm going to give my shout out to Hicks because I think that's the kind of energy that I enjoy watching as a football fan, but also I think that that's the kind of energy that needs to keep up, and we need him healthy. And he actually did have like the one impact play on defense, and we need to call that out.
Plus this is his contract year, so it's a big year for Akeem. All right. So are we going to go to the next segment here?
Yeah, let's do the next segment. So we're going to call this Sweet Tweets. This is the tweet that we want to highlight. I actually have two, but I'll just start off with one that's pretty simple and straightforward. It's from our friend Olin Kreutz. He's at Olin_Kreutz. You may remember him as a longtime center for the Bears. And I just wanted to bring this one in because Olin just seems like a guy that just kind of speaks his mind, but also like sometimes he just gets straight to the point. And his tweet said, "Fields, please." That was it. And I thought, Olin, you kind of nailed it. That's what we're looking for right now. We just need more Justin Fields. We got 5 plays out of Justin Fields. He went 2 for 2, 10 yards. That first play down in the red zone, that pass looked really sharp to me. He had a nice read option run or run, whatever that was, for a 3-yard touchdown scamper. Then he handed the ball off twice. But he had a clean sheet, if you will. His 5 plays went well, and we need absolutely more of him. I would like to have 100% of Justin Fields, but we need to see a steady increase of Justin Fields.
Every single week they should increase his plays, increase his package, and as far as package, I don't want to see a special group of plays. I want to see him run in the offense.
Right.
I want to see him get in there for a few series. Let's see what he can do if he has a couple plays in a row, not just come in for a reverse or a read option. Come in, let's get a series or 2 in each week, and then increase that as the week goes on, and then eventually, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to go to Justin Fields.
Right. Yeah, my other tweet is also a Fields tweet, but it's from Patrick Finley at Patrick Finley, and he says, maybe the most intriguing part of Justin Fields playing Sunday was Matt Nagy's admission he would have taken more snaps were the game closer.
I saw that.
What? What? Wait, what?
Yeah.
So Nagy's saying that if the game was closer, he would have used Fields more. So what I take from that is he didn't want to show cards that he had put together, and so okay, this game's lost, I'm saving this these package of plays that has Fields centered in them for next week because we're not going to win this game. But like, why wouldn't you use more Fields to get the game closer, keep the game closer? Like there's so many weird quotes and so many weird admissions around this offseason. This one was just stuck out to me to be like, if you think he's going to make you win the game or help you win the game or keep the game closer, play him more. Let's do it.
For mine, I was doing some work last night on my snap count article, and I saw a nugget that kind of intrigued me. The Bears defense last night had no tackles for loss, and I can't remember the last time that happened. So when I tweeted that out, at IDF162 tweeted back at me, how many explosive plays did the Bears give up? And I know you're a big guy with the explosive plays, and it was horrible. And the Athletics' Kevin Fishman actually tweeted out something that they gave up 2 plays of 50 yards last night. And that's more than they gave up in any season going all the way back to 2015. And also he had another nugget here where the Bears had 2 plays that had more than 14 yards. The Rams had 10 of them. I know an explosive play, I think, is 20 or more, but still on this, this was just a different stat of 14. But
you draw the line.
You draw the line. You have to do it somewhere. And then the real quick, the last one he had here was the Bears gave up 7.7 yards per play, and that's the most the Bears have given up since 2016.
Yeah, they were cutting through them. I mean, it was butter. I went through and did actual explosive play count. And the Bears had 1. It was that David Montgomery run.
Big one, yeah.
Yeah, right up at the top. So that was their only explosive play all game. And then the Rams had 4. 2 of them were those touchdown passes. One of them was the pass to Higbee. And then one of them, when they were salting the game away late, was a run from Henderson. So I count explosive plays as runs 15 yards or more.
Okay.
And passes 20 yards or more. Because that is the way that I originally learned it from the guy that
Was that the Brian Billick thing?
Billick, yeah, the
Yes,
Billick
yeah.
toxic differential.
Yes,
He had
yes.
it as that. That was his. Now, different teams counted as different ways, and so you might see numbers differently. And you're right. I do remember them having a lot of passes in the upper teen. The Rams had passes in the upper teens, and so if you count it as 15 yards or 16 yards, like some do, or just have an arbitrary cutoff to make your point, which is what unfortunately, a lot of reporters that don't work with numbers do. And it's kind of drives me nuts. Like, just have a standard, right?
Have a standard.
It's like,
yeah, I got you.
oh yeah, more than 7.5. It's like, don't pick a random number just to try to prove your point. Like, have a standard and stick with it throughout, your reporting time period. Don't just try to draw a line just to prove your point. That drives me nuts. That was your tweet.
That was my tweet.
Did it lead into your
It
stats?
leads us in. It's not really. So like for the next time we're gonna have it's called what do we have? Is it called something special, Jeff? I forget.
I don't know. I'm gonna call it Caught Up in a Numbers Game.
Caught Up. I like it. Okay.
And it's our stat of the week, something that stuck out to us. So
because Jeff has his for Jeff, you have a brand new stats article on Wednesdays. Drop it at the site, and I have, of course, the snap counts and stats article I do every day after the game. For me, my number or stat of the week is 20.8 miles per hour.
Ooh.
And I don't know if you
David
caught
Montgomery.
That. Yes, David Montgomery. Next Gen Stats tweeted out that he reached 20.8 miles per hour on his 41-yard run. And that is the fastest play of his career. And there was a lot made out of his speed work in the offseason. And, it's only one game. But he does look quicker. He looks faster, and I think if the Bears can lean on that a little bit, that's going to be good for this offense for the long term.
Boy, he looks good. I mean, that really is the silver lining, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm gonna have him a little bit later, but I also saw that one of the fastest times that they recorded was Khalil Herbert on that kick return. And
okay.
So the Bears came out fast. Like they obviously came out with the speed. There's some other speedy guys that we didn't really see them able to turn on the Jets, but maybe we can talk about that in a little bit too. I actually have a snap count as my stat of the week, and I had to bring this up because this is something that we talked about in the offseason quite a bit, and I have to bring this up. How many snaps did our whatever $1 million a year tight end get? 14 snaps. He had 2 targets, 1 catch, and 1 ball that skipped to him in the dirt. Ryan Pace, if you're going to keep Jimmy Graham on this roster for 14 snaps a week, what are we doing? Like this, and you know what? Here's the thing. I agree with Matt Nagy. He shouldn't be out there for more than 14 snaps. These people are like, oh, he's only 14. No, I don't want more Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's a situational player. Jimmy Graham's a situational player that needs to be playing in the red zone. I don't want him in between the 20s. I think those snaps are wasted. Give those to Cole Kmet. Give those to JP Holtz, for God's sakes. I don't care. But don't give them to Jimmy Graham. Give them to Jesper Horsted. But don't give them to Jimmy Graham. And I don't disagree. I don't want that number to be higher for Jimmy Graham. What I don't want is the amount of money that goes to Jimmy Graham, because the opportunity cost of keeping Jimmy Graham on this roster is that you had to cut Charles Leno. You had to cut Kyle Fuller, right? You could have found a way to keep one of those guys if you would have made the decision to cut Jimmy Graham. And that offensive line looks a little different if Charles Leno is still there. That secondary looks a lot different if you could have found a way to keep Kyle Fuller. And so I do not understand the priority setting that this conversation that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace had at some point where they said, this is important for us to keep Jimmy Graham above these other guys. Does not make sense to me.
This might go back to just how they value his leadership, his experience, him being a veteran. And it kind of goes back to the old Danny Trevathan, Nick Kwiatkowski decision. And they let Nick Kwiatkowski go, and they sent Danny Trevathan. Of course, now Danny Trevathan's injured, but they did that because they valued what he brought to the locker room. And I understand that to a point, but at some point, you have to understand what you're putting on the field. And if Jimmy Graham's only going to get a handful of snaps, like you said, I'd rather see those go to I'd rather see those snaps go to Jesse James, instead of a guy like Jimmy Graham, because Jimmy Graham, we all know what he's going to give you. I mean, and that catch he did make was a nice catch. He used his body. He knows how to use his body and box out a defender. great. That's a nice play. But for $9 million a year, I almost dropped an F-bomb here.
We'll
But
keep it clean
that's horrible.
if we
That's
can.
horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah, no, it's a bad decision in roster building. It's not understanding the value of the player. It's not understanding the value of the position. I'm sorry, a red zone one-trick pony specialist is not nearly as valuable as a number one corner, as a serviceable left tackle. Those guys should have absolutely had the priority to be kept if it was a money crunch over Jimmy Graham. Sorry, like people that are on Twitter that are Jimmy Graham fans, there can't be that many people that
there's a few out
there. That's what I'm saying. There's not that many people that can be related to Jimmy Graham. There are people that will defend this move that Pace did, but I can't. Like, this proved to me exactly why all off season I thought it was the easiest cut. I thought it was one of the 3 easiest cuts.
Yes.
Right. Buster Screen was an easy cut, and Jimmy Graham was right there. But it didn't happen, and now we got to live with. Yeah. And again, I don't want 30 snaps a game for Jimmy Graham.
No,
we're good. This is what we should get. This is proper usage. So
maybe he'll surprise us this year.
Okay. All right. Let's pause for a quick break, and then on the other side of this, we're going to come back with probably the best segment ever, which is we're just going to call the 3 Bears. So stick with us. All right, Lester, let's get into the 3 Bears. So here's the concept. Everybody knows Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. So Goldilocks goes in and, the porridge, 1 bowl's too hot, 1 bowl's too cold, 1 bowl's just right. 1 bet's too hard, 1 bet's too soft. What you get it, right? What we're going to do is we're going to identify somebody who came in hot. Like, they came in better than we expected them to come in. We're going to identify somebody who came in just right. That's what we expected. It may have been a special teamer that filled their role. Maybe it was a really good player that played at a really high level, whatever. It was what we expected. And then we're going to identify somebody who is cold, somebody who just did not look like they were performing up to the expectations. So that's the 3 Bears. Let's start with the good news. I'm a bit of an optimist, so let's start with the good news. Let's start with the hot bear. Who was, well, that sounds bad. Who came in hot? Whose bowl of porridge was hot here?
Real quick though, I think we should go. This is a little producing on the fly here. I don't want to finish cold.
Okay, all right. Well, we can flip.
Let's go hot. Let's go hot, cold, just right, because we're balanced. So let's finish off with the just right. The guy who did it just
hot,
right.
cold, just right.
Let's go hot, cold, just right. All right. So for me, hot, I got a feeling to be the same hot as you, and it's David Montgomery. I mean, this guy came in. I was expecting a big year for him. I'm not a big gambler. I'm starting to get more into it, but I actually bet the over on his yards this year, his touchdowns. I think Montgomery's in for a big, nice season, and he had 100 yards, in 3 quarters. And I have another next gen stats for you. He was 3rd in the entire NFL through Sunday's games with plus 32 yards, rushing yards over expectation, which is basically he gets hit and then he keeps going. And that's what we saw the whole night from Montgomery. He was getting hit. There were some holes there, but he was getting hit. He was breaking tackles. Arm tackles couldn't stop him. His touchdown was he powered through Aaron Donald, for crying out loud. So for me, my hot bear is David Montgomery.
All right. So 16 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. That's an excellent game, particularly when you had an offense that, didn't do particularly well. It was the one thing that they could seemingly do. That's also the guy for me. Obviously, I think we just have to give some love to David Montgomery here. I think you mentioned the betting. What I found interesting was some of these player props for total season yards. And, there's a lot that goes into that. If a guy gets injured, they don't give you your money back, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you're counting on health. Everybody kind of thinks like, well, this guy will stay healthy for all 17 games. I'm calculating that he's going to have this many yards, whatever. I believe that you had, what was it? 1,050 yards was the bet that you made.
Actually, mine, I got for, I think 975.
Okay. You got the same bet that I did then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got him over at over 975 as well, which I thought was just like, wait, what? Why do they not like David Montgomery? Now, it might have been a reflection of the offensive line, whatever, but that was a pretty low relative to a lot of other running backs. And I pounced on that one as well. So we both have David Montgomery stock here. And 108 yards where you only have to get 976. Like that's a pretty dang good start. But
we're close
he looks
already.
great. he looks great. And like I never like to lean on he's in the best shape of his life. He had such a great offseason, everything's going well for him. But it did seem it hit a little different with him. Like it was very specific of what he was working on.
Yeah.
And they were like throwing out numbers like, no, like he's running this pace. Like he was running faster than what he was. Like this is like real. He has gained speed. Like this is real. It's measured. And it was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it looked absolutely like that. Like, and he still has that contact balance. That's kind of the buzzword on him when he came out from a scouting perspective, that when he gets hit, he doesn't go down with first contact. He's able to stay on his feet, and he's able to get a couple extra yards. Oh, a yard here, 3 yards there. You add that up over a couple hundred carries, and that is a way to really boost that overall number. So I'm really excited about David Montgomery and seeing what he can do. I'm really excited for him to be able to come out and have a really good first game. He really was the silver lining, I think, kind of the whole team. Maybe you can say Khalil Herbert looked like he's competent back there returning kicks. But on the flip side of that, who's got the cold bowl of porridge?
For me, I'm going to go on the defense because the defense was pretty awful. And I'm going to actually go with safety Eddie Jackson. He just had it seemed like he had no interest in wanting to tackle very often. He wasn't very physical. And this is something that's kind of been happening the last couple of years with him. He was a really good year in 2018. And then he just hasn't been the same guy. And then I know part of it is obviously the Chuck Pagano scheme. But here he is now. He's back in a scheme that he should feel comfortable in. And I just didn't see the effort. And then him forgetting to touch the guy that was down, him and Gibson both. I don't know if you heard it. Last night at the press conference, Matt Nagy said it's a learning experience for these guys. And then he reiterated that stupid ass statement again today. It's a learning experience for these guys are professional football players. You don't know to touch a guy when he's on the turf.
Undrafted free agent rookie in the preseason doesn't touch the guy down because he's used to the college rules where the guy's down in the play's blown dead. Okay, I can accept that explanation for that specific situation. Eddie Jackson and Tayshaun Gibson, the guy that's like, how many years has he been in the pros? Like, what are we doing?
I think Gibson's like an 8 or 9 year pro.
Yeah, he's been in for a long time. Eddie's been on way too long. Obviously, a lot of people are taking umbrage with Jackson because of his contract and how much money he's making, and it did not seem like he was putting in the effort. It didn't help. Jackson's my guy too. I wanted to call him out here. It didn't help that there was a little video that came out where
it's brutal.
The Bears site brought it out. Like I don't really understand what they were thinking with this, but Jackson basically is talking to his secondary mates, and he says something to the effect of like, everybody tackle. What you got to do is not worry about tackling. You worry about trying to take the ball away or whatever. And I don't know, somebody found inspiration in that and shared it on online and on Twitter. And a lot of people are like, wait a minute, Eddie, you're not the guy to talk about not tackling because you've got some issues. Like tackling has been a big issue for you. So maybe don't take it so nonchalant. Not only did he not touch the guy down, he took a terrible angle.
Yeah.
And just totally whiffed on a tackle. Look, I've defended Eddie Jackson for a long time.
Same. Yeah.
It's it, man. Like I can't do it anymore. You're back in a scheme that's supposed to be friendly for you. And if you can't perform now, like I can't help you. Like Pagano's gone. Like that excuse is gone. And so if you can't recapture 2018 magic, then like we're just gonna have to, we're gonna have to call it out. And it sucks because I like Eddie Jackson a lot. I like what he can be.
Same. It's funny because like when you look at the secondary, you figure you had Jalen Johnson, you had Eddie Jackson. Those are the two guys you're going to get something from, because the other corner's nothing. The nickel, Marquis Christian got the nickel start this week. What? Okay.
Oh, so where did that come from?
So there are some issues in the secondary. So Eddie Jackson has to be Eddie Jackson,
right?
And he wasn't last night. Brutal.
Yeah, that Marquis Christian start kind of came out of nowhere. Not that we were like, oh, Duke Shelley's going to be great, but it was rather surprising. And then, one of those blown coverages, it kind of depends on who you're listening to and where the blame goes. It does seem like Christian was supposed to carry that route all the way through and maybe cut that off, but could have been one of the safeties was supposed to take that on. But yeah, he did not have a particularly good game either, but not a lot of people in this secondary did. But like you say, if you have premier players in the secondary, they have to play like it because they have to make up for some of these replacement level guys that you're counting on because you had to cut Kyle Fuller, right? You cut the best player in that secondary, and now those other guys have to step up and play above their station to make up for that. And that did not happen in week one. Terrible matchup for them, but did not happen in week one. We need to see better. All right. So let's end with the just right. This is a guy that we just thought, hey, want to identify that they played about what we thought they would. So who was that guy for you?
For me, I'm going to go back to the tight end spot. We talked about a little bit earlier. I'm going to go Cole Kmet. He was targeted 7 times. He had 5 catches, 42 yards. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I mean, his blocking was kind of touch and go a little bit. I think he had 1 drop in the game as well. But when he had the ball in his hands, he ran hard. He ran physical. And this is kind of what I expect from Cole Kmet. I expect him to hit about 6-7 targets a game, and be part of that offense. I would like to see him used a little differently, a little more of the stuff across the middle. I don't think we saw enough of that. Again, that kind of plays back into the old boot slide offense, where you're able to get that tight end across the middle from the opposite side. We just didn't see it enough at least. But what I think Cole Kmet, like you said, he should be the guy getting some of those targets from Jimmy Graham anyway. So I think Cole Kmet, if he can kind of keep this pace up and stay in this lane, I think that's good for the Bears offense.
Yeah, I mean, if he's averaging 50 yards a week, that averages out to about 850 for the year. If he can stay healthy,
that's a hell of a year.
That's great. That's great for a tight end. So, I mean, if he's able to do that, that's a good year for Cole Kmet. I have a very similar player that I'm identifying here, and that's Marquise Goodwin. He, 4 catches, 45 yards, nothing that jumps out at you. But again, this guy's expected to be the wide receiver 3. There's someone that I thought this guy's probably going to take that role when he signed. It looks like he's comfortable in that. He's got plenty of experience. I think Ryan Pace is probably feeling pretty good about the Marquise Goodwin signing, I think is what I'm saying. And I thought he played all right. I'd love to see him turn loose a little bit. I know that maybe the coverage dictated that he didn't get anything deep thrown to him, but Goodwin's a solid player. If he can stay healthy, it's a pretty good addition to this wide receiving core. So this is definitely in my mind, this is an improvement over Anthony Miller's inconsistency. I probably won't get anybody to disagree with me on that, but they did get more professional in the wide receiver room. I think that we have to kind of acknowledge that of all the kind of the negative things that we've been harping on a little bit, the wide receiver room did add some legitimate professionals that I think can provide a level of consistency that Nagy's probably been wishing some of those guys in the past were able to deliver and haven't. And so I just want to identify Goodwin because I thought he was solid. I'd like to see where his season goes.
I think with those guys like him and with Bird, I think right now we kind of saw a lot of the curl stuff. I think I'd like to see them do more pick stuff with them, kind of get them the ball in space and kind of let that speed take hold. Like you said, the Rams were playing a lot of stuff really deep. They were really stopping the deep pass. Okay, fine. Let's get him going vertically underneath and let's get the speed and let him make a play with the ball in his hands. I think that's the next evolution of this offense. And, we'll see what happens next week against the Bengals.
Good segue, man. That's the first show. I mean, that's reviewing this. I mean, you got any final thoughts on this game? These are the segments. We're trying this out. It's a new show. If you have any ideas, you're listening to this, let us know, obviously. Let us know on Twitter. I'm at Gridironborn, so you can hit me up there on the website. Just kind of let us know what you want to hear. But we wanted to just kind of start off with something that, a little bit removed from the game and things that we in hindsight have thought, okay, let's identify these things and talk about them with the emotion kind of taken out. But this is the show, man. What else you want to say about the Rams?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think the game went about like I expected. Like I said, I thought it would be a little closer, but I saw no way the Bears were really going to win this game. So I mean, it's funny because it's week 1 in the NFL. Everyone has overreactions week 1. So if the Bears come out next week and win, Bears fans are back on Nagy's side, I'm sure. So we'll see what happens.
I think that the number of plays for Fields has to increase.
Yeah.
And, I honestly wonder if there's a scenario where Nagy gets booed at Soldier Field for not playing Fields enough. Because I think that this fan base, I don't know that this coaching, not that they care, but I don't know that this coaching staff understands just how behind Fields this fan base is. Like I've never seen anybody embrace so quickly as Justin Fields has, which is great, and it's not Andy Dalton's fault. Andy Dalton's signed, he's a professional. He wants to continue his career, and the Bears offered him a lot of money to play quarterback for their team. It's not Andy Dalton's fault. Don't take it out on him.
Yeah.
But Bears fans have decided, like, Justin Fields now, please.
Dalton's going to get booed. It's going to happen. It's just how it's going to. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But like you said, everyone wants to see Fields. So I think we're going to see it. I think we are going to see an increase. I was a little surprised to see him out there as quick as he was last week. I figured he'd play, but he was the fourth play in. He's in the game. So like, let's go, let's rock, let's get Justin Fields some more reps and let's have some fun.
Absolutely. If you can't be good, at least be entertaining. So that's been my philosophy for a long time. So yes, let's have some fun. Let's get him in there. Let's see what this is all about, because to me, 2021 is all about Justin Fields. We will check in next week together when we talk about the Browns. But do you want to run through the lineup of the Windy City Gridiron podcast channel and what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, every Monday or every post game is going to be Bear With Me, Robert Schmitz. Immediately right after the game, it's going to be him and a guest. Last night was Quentin Berckes Stats. It was an awesome show. I checked that out earlier today. Of course, we're going to try coming to you guys at least Tuesday morning. Sometimes we'll have it up a little early because we are actually recording on Monday night. The next day on Wednesday, we're going to have Rule of Three, Robert Schmitz, Danny Meehan, Brandon Robinson, more of an X's and O's approach to the game. Thursday is going to be Bears Banter. Bill Zimmerman always brings in a really good guest to kind of share their thoughts on the Bears and the NFL in whole. After that, of course, is our pregame show, which is now Bears Over Beers. Jeff, of course, hosts that along with EJ Snyder. And then, of course, I have T-Formation Conversation. I'm coming at you this year. Friday night, late Friday night, I'm going to talk about the injury report of both the Bears and their opponent. And then every other week, we're going to try and have more of a draft-centric show with Jacob Infante, our lead draft analyst, and Danny Meehan, 1/3 of the Rule of Three podcast, talking about some prospects they like. Should be a fun channel this year.
It's a good lineup. There's a lot of podcasting coming at you. There's a lot of articles on the site coming at you. So hopefully you are staying tuned to that. Until next time, though, appreciate you tuning in to this recap show, and bear down.